Southampton at a glance: Premier League and Old First Division titles, 0. Best finish, 2nd, 1983-84, FA Cups, 1. Last, 1975-76, League Cups, 0. Best finish, runners-up twice, last 2016-17, FA Community Shield, 1. 1909-10, runners-up 5 times. Stream, watch every place match live. It is very difficult to gauge what an acceptable season would be this year at Southampton. The Saints finished 8th, 7th, 6th, and 8th 4 consecutive Premier League seasons before last year's shock to the system, avoiding relegation by just 1 place and 3 points. So what is the goal this season? Should they target the top 10? Is it simply to stay up? Or can it be both, with the team shooting for a top half slot but satisfied with safety if they fall short of the former? Much of this will take shape as the season trudges along. The squad theoretically has the depth needed to compete at this level, and while this summer's haul hasn't exactly jumped off the pages, it's been enough to plug some big holes. With Mark Hughes at the helm, there are plenty of unknowns headed into 2018-19 with the Premier League's most mysterious enigma. Southampton will finish top 10 because the squad depth is enough to secure results. Every team deals with injuries over the course of a long league season, and Southampton is well equipped to handle it. With 5 natural centre-backs on the roster and 4 natural strikers, the team is deep from top to bottom. Southampton will struggle through a relegation battle because the squad doesn't have the star power necessary to make noise. Gone are the days of Sadio Mane, Virgil van Dijk, Graziano Pelle, José Fonte, and the rest of the players who have filtered out after finding steps up. Even Dusan Tadic departed this summer after struggling to maintain his form last year. Hughes will need to figure out his best 11 players soon, or too much tinkering will bring the team down. Hughes' biggest test will come at the back. 3 centre-backs played over 2,300 minutes last season across all competitions, and the team brought in another investor guard for a high price. Someone will need to step up and earn the right to be deemed a star, or the team may find itself rudderless. Best possible 11: McCarthy, Hote, Vestergaard, Yoshida, Soares, Hojbjerg, Ramu, Armstrong, Bertrand, Gabbiadini, Austin. Transfers in: Jannik Vestergaard, $28.9 million, Borussia Mönchengladbach; Mohamed El Younousi, $20.8 million, FC Basel; Angus Gunn, $13 million, Manchester City; Stuart Armstrong, $9.2 million, Celtic. Transfers out: Dusan Tadic, $13.3 million, Ajax; Florin Gardos, free; CS Universitatea Craiova; Sofiane Boufal, loan; Celta Vigo; Jordi Klizzi, Feyenoord, loan. Ranking their off-season: B. Bringing in Vestergaard is a solid move, but strengthened a position of strength for Southampton. El Younousi hasn't been great in pre-season, so he has work to do to crack the starting lineup. The acquisition of Gunn was a quality move, with Fraser Forster likely to leave. The biggest problem with Southampton's off-season was the sale of Dusan Tadic at the lowest his value's been maybe in his entire career. The electric playmaker had rated Premier League fullbacks for years, but struggled last season. Now, at age 29, Southampton failed after one bad season. They not only dumped Tadic but failed to adequately replace him, at least until El Younousi proves he can compete on this stage. Still, the Southampton squad didn't have a ton of holes to fill, and their summer has been at least promising. Saints' transfer policy hasn't been strong in recent years, with the acquisitions of Klizzi and Boufal not panning out, with both loaned out this summer. Star player: this is tough. There's no true superstar on this roster, and nobody stands out among the rest. That is a positive from the standpoint that no one injury could take down this team, but from a negative, obviously the club will want someone to fill that role. At this point, Ryan Bertrand is probably the closest thing this team has to a star. The likely captain terrorizes opponents down the left flank, and has improved his defensive capabilities. Still, he's nowhere close to a true star, and Hughes will need him to step into that role this season. Coach's Corner. Nobody more embodies where Southampton stands right now than Mark Hughes. While it's impossible to figure out just where the Southampton squad fits in the Premier League, so too is it impossible to truly judge how good or bad Mark Hughes is as a manager. He had mixed success in charge of Manchester City, was critical to Fulham's success before abruptly resigning, failed miserably at QPR, led Stoke City to its best Premier League years ever before inexplicably becoming completely inept, and saved Southampton from relegation. It's difficult to get a beat on just where Hughes stands in relation to his Premier League compatriots, but this season will be a true test of his abilities. Follow at _bonfire. Fulham, Wolverhampton, and Cardiff City have spent a combined $180 million this summer. Manchester United, Manchester City, and Tottenham have spent a combined $185 million this summer. The gap is closing. The influx of money from top to bottom across the Premier League table is having an effect, and lower table teams are able to join the whirlwind at an unprecedented level. The three newly promoted teams in the Premier League have spent the summer at previously unimaginable levels. So, will this have an effect on the bottom of the table? Absolutely, positively it will. Overhauling a squad following a successful season is always a major risk, but teams are more and more willing to take on that risk when it comes to ensuring Premier League safety, and ensuring the yearly checks continue to flow. Fulham alone has spent $89.5 million this summer, and could end up changing a whopping 6 members of their EFL playoff final starting lineup. Previews: Fulham, Cardiff City, Huddersfield, but money isn't good money unless it's smart money, and these teams are closing the gap there too. Fulham pulled off a coup when they nabbed passing wizard Jean-Michel Seri from OGC Nice, a player coveted by Champions League teams in England, Italy, and Germany. They paid a pretty penny too, costing them $34.7 million, a Fulham transfer record. Wolves looks to have pulled off a steal by snagging 21-year-old Diogo Jota from Atletico Madrid, with the $16 million looking well worth the damage after leading the team with 18 goals last season in the Championship. They're set to add to that total with the impending capture of Adama Traore for a reported $23 million, breaking Wolves' transfer record as well. Cardiff bolstered its mediocre attack by spending $26 million on a pair of English wingers in their prime. Both Fulham and Wolves also kept their top talent, no easy feat with sharks in the waters. Ryan Sessegnon stayed on at Craven Cottage despite becoming the first lower division player to be nominated for PFA Young Player of the Year, and 21-year-old Ruben Neves signed a new 6-year contract at Wolves this summer after carving the championship to pieces last campaign. Both players had bigger clubs circling, waiting to strike. Even smaller clubs in the Premier League not yet considered established are ponying up the cash. Brighton has shelled out $60 million this summer, $53 of which came on 3 players. Huddersfield Town, a club that had never sniffed the top division in English soccer before promotion last year, has found $53 million to spend. Preview: Burnley, Newcastle. With the new standard being wildly shifted, where does that leave clubs like Burnley, Newcastle, and Watford, who have barely spent a dime? Each of these requires a different answer at the more microscopic level, but it all boils down to one result: they will be left behind. With smaller clubs able to splash the cash, the margin for error is getting thinner by the year. It's harder and harder to find 3 teams worse than, insert financially strapped club here. Burnley, for example, has a Europa League campaign to navigate plus a follow-up to their 7th place finish last season, but they have purchased just 1 player this summer, with manager Sean Dyche vocally protesting increasing player prices. What about Tottenham, an established upper-tier club that literally hasn't spent a dime this window? Will they be punished for not improving this summer at all? That's more complicated of an answer. The short version is no, Spurs has such a deep team with so few true holes, they can afford to take a summer off. If it becomes a more long-term strategy, sure, they'll fall back. But we all know that's not the case. Yet for the clubs in peril every waking moment of their Premier League existence, the writing is on the wall is clear: spend our wilt. The newly promoted clubs' no long-term investments require short-term movement, and the time is now to keep up with the boat, or sink into the perilous waters below. Follow at _bonfire. The progression for the Reds under Jurgen Klopp is ready to take the next step this season. Having made the Champions League final last season and finishing a comfortable fourth in the Premier League table, Liverpool is now a title contender. Not favourite. That would be Manchester City, the team that blew the rest of the league out of the water last season and by all accounts threatens to do so again this coming year. Not if the Reds have anything to say about it. What will it take for Liverpool to make the leap? Is it realistic to think they can give Manchester City a good fight? Yes, it is. We all know how good this Liverpool attack is. Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, and Roberto Firmino comprise a deadly trio of attacking threat. There is no Premier League defense that can adequately lock these three down for 108 minutes a season. Now add Xherdan Shaqiri, and it becomes virtually unstoppable. What Liverpool has struggled with in recent years is its defense. They brought Virgil van Dijk in last January, and he had an immediate impact. In the 14 matches Van Dijk played for Liverpool last season, all of which he played 90 minutes, they conceded 2 or more goals just 3 times. The Reds add Fabinho and Naby Keita in front of the defensive line and Alisson behind it, and the lockdown continues. And Jordan Henderson, who showed next-level capability as a number 6 at the World Cup this summer, and the midfield looks utterly stacked. This is the most loaded team from front to back in the Premier League, not named Manchester City. Not only that, but consider the presence of players like Georginio Wijnaldum, Adam Lallana, and Daniel Sturridge, and this is the deepest team outside of Manchester City. It's obviously that Liverpool can win the title. Manchester City won't have the cakewalk they had last year, and the Reds are a big reason why. However, asking will Liverpool win the Premier League title is a whole other level. We're not ready to go make that leap yet. Newcastle at a glance: Premier League and Old First Division titles, 2, last 1959-60, FA Cups, 5, last 1954-55, League Cups, 0, best finish, runners-up 1974-75, FA Community Shield, 1, 1909-10, runners-up 5 times, stream, watch every place match live. Newcastle's biggest enemy is itself, and this year might just be the year it brings them down for real. Soccer's Jerry Jones has taken flack for years as the Magpies slowly consume themselves from the inside out, yet Mike Ashley continues to trudge on stuck in his ways. No Premier League team would produce a bigger inferno upon relegation than Newcastle. Championship title winners just 2 years ago, Rafa Benitez has milked everything he can out of a paper-thin squad for the last 2 years, but if relegation becomes unavoidable, Newcastle's biggest asset would most certainly walk, and the doom and gloom would spread like wildfire. It's somewhat surprising that relegation talks whirls after a 10th-placed finish last year, but that's the Benitez effect. The team continues to punch above its weight on paper, all thanks to their all-star manager. Yet the summer transfer window has been another one of frustration, and thus the fan unrest continues. Can Benitez push the Magpies away from the bottom-tier maelstrom, or will Newcastle be pulled into the unescapable cyclone? Newcastle will finish away from the drop because everything good Newcastle has stumbled upon the last 2 years has been attributable to Benitez. With the Spaniard around, most anything is possible. The defense is thin but talented, and the attack has promise. If Newcastle can avoid the injury bug, they can go places. Newcastle will be relegated because the squad is razor thin. Florian Lejeune is already out with an ACL tear, and if an injury leaves either Jamal Lascelles or Martin Dubravka on the sidelines as well, the backline becomes Swiss cheese. At the other end there's a little more depth, but much of the creativity falls to Ios Perez, and an injury to the wrong place in that department could bring the team down as well. Mike Ashley hasn't done enough this summer to instill confidence in fans. Best possible 11, Dubravka, Yedlin, Lascelles, Ward, Ritchie, Shelby, Diame, Atsu, Perez, Gale. Transfers in: Yoshinori Muto, $12.4 million, FSV Mainz, Fabian Schär, $4.6 million, Deportivo La Coruña, Martin Dubravka, $4.6 million, Sparta Prague, Ki-sung Young, free, Swansea City, Kennedy, loan, Chelsea. Transfers out: Alexander Mitrovic, $23.3 million, Fulham, Mikel Merino, $12 million, Real Sociedad, Chance Mbemba, $9.2 million, Porto, Matt Sells, $4.6 million, RC Strasbourg, Masadio Haidara, free, Lens, Stuart Findlay, free, Kilmarnock, Jack Kolbach, loan, Nottingham Forest. Ranking their off-season, see: Newcastle received nearly $25 million for Alexander Mitrovic from Fulham, a total that was basically a foregone conclusion for weeks, pending Newcastle securing his replacement in Muto, and promptly sat on it. While useful players have been brought in, with Schär replacing the injured Lejeune and Dubravka likely to start in net, the team wasn't necessarily improved in the transfer market, and the squad still has plenty of holes. If they go down, this transfer window will be largely viewed as a big reason why. Star player: while Ios Perez is the lifeblood of the Newcastle attack, nobody is more important to this squad than Jamal Lascelles. Newcastle resisted heavy interest for his services this summer, and they will be far better off for it. The 24-year-old has developed into one of the best central defenders in the Premier League, and was heavily considered for a spot in the England World Cup squad this summer. If anything happens to him, this squad will come crumbling to pieces, and he would likely leave if they are relegated. Coach's Corner: while Lascelles is the most valuable player, nobody is more important to this team than Rafa Benitez. Mike Ashley's greatest accomplishment was convincing the Spaniard to commit to the club through the one season in the Championship, and it has paid off since. Still, Ashley does little to back his manager, and Benitez has not held back. After a 4-0 defeat to Braga in pre-season, Benitez said, "The fans have to be concerned, we are concerned. I'm really worried. Should the club misstep at all this season, Benitez would surely depart for a bigger club. He's certainly earned the right." PST predicts: while much of this preview has been quite doom and gloom, Newcastle has enough prized possessions to stay up this season. The most concerning part of this off-season has to be the newly promoted club spending vast quantities of money to improve, but there should be enough teams worse than Newcastle to prevent the Magpies from suffering heartbreak. Just enough. They should finish around 15th in the table after quite the scare. Follow at _bonfire ready for the new Premier League season. Yeah, so are we. Stream, watch every place match live. With just a few days to go until the 2018-19 campaign kicks off, the Premier League Fantasy Draft offers you the chance to crank up the banter levels a few notches with your friends as you select your fantasy team in a draft format for the upcoming season. Let the draft parties and writing on big boards commence. Full details on how to enter the Place Fantasy Drafts can be found here. The big question is, if you are lucky enough to get the #1 overall pick, who do you go with? Harry Kane or Mohamed Salah? Ponder that, and many other things such as bargain defenders from Burnley who will give you bucket loads of points, while you set the league up. Follow at JPW_NBC Sports.